Maybe I could say something about this. You've all heard me speak a number of times over the years about cultism in negative terms. I've criticized the cult of the spiritual master, and so forth, and cultic attachments that people create with one another. In other words, I myself have used this word as a negative term to criticize a certain aspect of your own approach to spiritual life. And one of the primary aspects of the negative meaning I gave to the word cult was the exclusiveness of the cult. In other words, where there's a certain kind of hyped enthusiasm and people gather together attracted to that enthusiasm itself and accept all the dogmas with which that particular group makes themselves enthusiastic, and then they create themselves a kind of enemy of the world and lose communication with the world in general, with the processes of life. And we have seen it here throughout all the years, again and again and again. The cultic quality, the kind of gleeful enthusiasm for having found it, you see? And that's not it. That's got nothing whatever to do with this teaching and with the value that I can have for you personally. Nothing to do with it, and yet it somehow or other, even in the midst of this serious attempt, you see, to develop real practice in people, this quality constantly reincarnates, reappears, distorting the practice, distorting your understanding, making you into a cult of enthusiastic people. Enthusiastic for the sake of enthusiasm itself, just gleeful, you see, having found it, being protected by one another, being able to be put in a good mood by one another, being able to believe that there's something true and you're all associated with it, and by being associated with it, you see, you're glamorized by the energy of it. And people just read spiritual books and very often begin to believe they're enlightened, you see, just by reading books. And here you can not only read books, you can be with me, you can live with this community, you can practice devotional practices and so forth, you see. So you can really begin to believe you're enlightened for no reason whatsoever. So you must be very mindful of this quality of cultism, which I've criticized again and again and again over these years. So much of my work with you is to undermine this childishness in you. So many of the years of my work with people was spent trying to deal with this childishness, the failure of people to truly live the spiritual process, you see. That's the significance of the way I had to work with people for several years. To uncover all of these methods, these strategies that are simply childish. And they must be uncovered, and they must become a matter of responsibility in you before you can truly live this practice. Now this tendency that's in you, and which is present in members of other religious groups, and which is present in everyone, in the form of every group that exists, not just religious groups, political organizations, begonia fanciers, whatever they are. Every time there's an organization of people associated with something about which you can become enthusiastic, you'll see the qualities of the cult. And I'm not kidding about begonia fanciers. If any of you have ever belonged to a sort of hobbyist organization, you'll see precisely the same kind of mentality that appears in what are now being negatively called cults. One of the primary cults in our time is the TV cult. You realize how many millions of people are watching TV at this very moment? Millions. Millions and millions and millions of people all over the world watch that insane tube every day. Some things about it are entertaining and so forth, but it becomes their entire world. It becomes the entire source of their understanding, their intelligence. It dictates their mood. It dictates what they can know about. For most people, it is nearly the only source of information apart from gossip. And there you see brainwashing. If anywhere, you'll see it in the TV game. The repetitive messages of subhuman existence. And people are fragmented by TV into single individuals, you see. They lose their intelligence, they become helpless, and they, by being secluded in their homes, fail to create community. Now, the roots of this kind of negative cultism are present in the childish mentality of every man, every woman. It is the need to depend on parental energy, parental attention, and so forth, in order to be sustained, to feel good. The need to be loved, while at the same time not wanting to be responsible to be love. But this tendency is not only present in our childishness universally. This tendency is also dogmatically justified by specific cultural influences with which we've all come in contact. And to begin to confine this examination of cultism to the area of religion itself, consider religion, downtown religion, establishment religion. Cults are all religions. All religions are cults. Some positive in their quality and some negative. But what were you taught? How were you instructed to live? What you were fundamentally indoctrinated to be was a child, a believer in the parent God. And you were taught to be in awe of certain individuals who are great prophets or great saints or great saviors, to the point of ascribing to those individuals exclusive power, exclusive intimacy with the divine. In other words, we are taught to assign the truth and the realization of truth exclusively to certain individuals, usually to one individual. And this is one of the primary signs of a cult, in that the message is exoteric, outer. It's the message for children who merely believe. They are taught to be children, just believers. And the center of the cult, the worshipped figure, image, idea, whatever, is considered to possess a certain status that no one else can attain. We assign this status to our notion of the deity. We regard the deity to be unattainable, unrealizable, totally external to us, you see. And we regard human individuals whom we deify to represent an unattainable status. This is typical of exoteric teachings, exoteric cults. People are made to be in awe of or to worship someone or some concept that is divine, with the feeling that they themselves can never attain that status, but that if they worship that reality, they will get benefits for doing so. Be good, and don't try to become divine, and you will get blessings. The exoteric or outer teaching is directed to children, and it obliges people to remain children. And the results of such a message are the inevitable creation of a cult in negative terms. In other words, such a religious message must produce a childish cult, because nothing but the mood and practice of a child becomes a matter of instruction in such a cult. The cult is exclusive in nature. We have the only truth and the only one. Everybody else is wrong. And believe me that, don't believe me. Consider it for yourself. Consider the childish message of your own religion, you see? So to the degree that you are childish and dependent and irresponsible and need connection with something superior to yourself to console you, you just want to hang in here and hear the conversations and engage in superficial aspects of the practice and phase a lot and rise and fall with your commitment. And basically be glamorized by your association with me and with what I have taught and with this community. To the degree that you are adolescent, reactive, self-possessed, not liking your quality of needing to depend on something, you're always haggling with being here or not, and always trying to find some position of security and absoluteness in yourself, some likeness to the God-realized personality, some likeness to the divine reality itself, so that you can believe that you have it, that you are it, and that you are now immune to any need to associate with spiritual masters or to practice the difficult path of self-transcendence. But this teaching does not contain any justification whatsoever for either your childishness or your adolescent strategies. These tendencies in you are specifically considered, criticized in this teaching. Specifically. And always have been. This teaching is not an exoteric teaching. It is an esoteric teaching. And that your approach to me should not be that of negative cultism, in which you become sort of benightedly enthusiastic about all kinds of superficial matters associated with me, and assign to me exclusive divine intimacy and power, which you can never duplicate. My purpose in associating with people is not to entertain them, not to be believed in, not to be worshipped in this nonsensical downtown fashion, so that you are never changed but only consoled. My purpose in my teaching is to make it possible for you to duplicate what I have done. Not to be eternally separated from me, but to be in communion with me, to be intimate with me in spiritual terms, so that you yourself may live this practice and fulfill it in your own case, and make a community with one another out of the happiness, the true happiness, of mature, divine living. Everything that there is about cultism that is negative in its nature is specifically criticized in this teaching. I don't want your enthusiasm to be superficially generated by the books that I write. I want you to consider them. Consider the matters they contain. Consider yourself very critically, very directly, rigorously, and come to the point of insight that is like that expressed in these books. You must be founded in insight yourself, not merely being enthusiastic about me, not believing in me for some irrational reason, not being consoled by association with me. You must come to the point of insight, critical insight into the qualities of the world, the qualities in you that have adapted to all of that, and to your own immaturity. The function of spiritual community is attested to by history. We are genetically disposed to be a certain kind of thing as human beings, but we become that fully only through acculturation. In other words, by experience, by learning. And the downtown culture is not sufficient to stimulate adaptation in the highest terms. Only the higher culture, the wisdom culture, obliges you to adapt beyond money, food, and sex, you see. The wisdom culture obliges you to adapt to the self-transcending disposition of the heart, and it obliges you to adapt to the higher mechanisms in the body-mind. It obliges you to adapt to the psychic fullness of the being. It obliges you to surrender, to enter into unity with the reality in which the world is arising and changing and passing. No TV commentator is going to oblige you to do anything remotely like that. No university scholar is interested in having you do anything remotely like that. It is the task of adepts to create the cultures of wisdom. This is their specific function. It is a specific function in nature. For certain individuals to realize the higher possibility and to create a culture of adaptation to that possibility. There are adepts of various degrees, and therefore there are cultures of various levels of wisdom. There are teachers you stay with briefly, and there are masters you stay with your whole life. But the principle of the relationship to the spiritual master, the principle of spiritual culture itself, the principle of higher adaptation, none of this is truly in doubt except in the childish and adolescent mentality that does not understand or appreciate or value existence itself.